What happens when one of Britain's most beloved actors walks onto a morning talk show and gets blindsided by a host who refuses to show basic respect? In just 43 seconds, a simple question turns into the most uncomfortable moment in daytime television history, and it only takes one comment from Lorraine Kelly to send everything spiraling out of control. Colin Firth arrived at the studio that morning expecting a standard promotional interview. He had a new film to discuss, and Lorraine Kelly's show seemed like the perfect platform. Friendly, casual, the kind of chat that audiences loved. But from the moment Colin sat down on that bright orange sofa, something felt different. The energy in the room was tense, and Lorraine had a look in her eyes that suggested she wasn't interested in playing nice. Sitting alongside Lorraine on the panel were two other familiar faces from the show. There was Ross King, the entertainment correspondent, and Christine Lampard, who often filled in as a co-host. Both of them seemed relaxed at first, ready for what they thought would be another pleasant morning interview. Lorraine started with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Colin Firth, everyone. Lovely to have you here. Finally." That word hung in the air. Finally. As if Colin had been avoiding her show for years, as if he owed her something. Colin shifted slightly in his seat, but maintained his composure. "Thank you for having me, Lorraine. Happy to be here." "Are you, though?" Lorraine shot back, her smile sharpening. "Because your people made it quite clear you weren't interested in coming on this show for the longest time." Ross King jumped in quickly, trying to smooth things over. "Well, he's here now, and that's what matters. Colin, tell us about the new film." But Lorraine wasn't done. She leaned forward, ignoring Ross completely. "I'm just curious, Colin, what changed your mind? Did your film not get enough interest from the bigger shows?" The audience went quiet. Christine Lampard's eyes widened, and she glanced nervously between Lorraine and Colin. This wasn't the warm, bubbly morning chat viewers were used to. Colin took a breath, clearly trying to maintain his professionalism. "I don't think that's entirely fair," Colin said carefully. "I've been busy with filming schedules. It's not personal." "Oh, it feels personal," Lorraine said, leaning back with her arms crossed. "When someone of your caliber consistently turns down invitations to a show that's been on air for decades, it sends a message." "Lorraine, come on," Christine interjected gently. "Let's talk about the film. Colin's here to share something exciting with the viewers." Lorraine waved her hand dismissively. "We'll get to that. I just think it's important to address the elephant in the room. You know, Colin, some of us have built our careers on being accessible, on connecting with real people. Not everyone can afford to be so selective." Colin's jaw tightened. "I'm not sure what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything," Lorraine said, her voice taking on a sharper edge. "I'm saying it outright. There's a certain arrogance that comes with fame, wouldn't you say? A feeling that some shows are beneath you?" Ross King tried again. "I think we're getting off track here. Colin's one of the most respected actors in the industry, and he's always been gracious in interviews I've seen." "That's not what I've heard," Lorraine cut in. "I've heard from quite a few people that Mr. Firth here can be rather difficult, demanding even." Colin's face flushed. "That's completely untrue. I don't know who you've been talking to, but those are baseless accusations." "Are they?" Lorraine pressed. "Because I have it on good authority that you've walked out of interviews before, that you've made unreasonable demands about questions you won't answer." "That's a lie," Colin said, his voice firm but controlled. "I've never walked out of an interview in my flocks career. And if I've declined to answer certain questions, it's because they were inappropriate or intrusive." Christine looked genuinely uncomfortable now. "Maybe we should take a quick break." "No, we're not taking a break," Lorraine snapped. "This is my show, and we're having a real conversation for once. I'm tired of these celebrity interviews where we just throw softball questions and pretend everything is perfect. There's a difference between asking tough questions and being outright disrespectful." Colin replied, his patience clearly wearing thin. "And right now, you're crossing a line." Lorraine laughed, but it was cold. "Oh, I'm crossing a line? That's rich coming from someone who's spent their entire career playing posh characters and looking down their nose at everyone else." The audience gasped. This had gone from uncomfortable to hostile in a matter of minutes. Ross King looked like he wanted to disappear into the sofa cushions. Christine put her hand on Lorraine's arm, trying to calm her down, but Lorraine shook her off. "You don't know anything about me," Colin said, his voice low and steady. "You've made assumptions based on gossip and your own prejudices." "Prejudices?" Lorraine's voice rose. "I'll tell you what's prejudiced. It's assuming that a morning talk show isn't worthy of your time. It's treating the people who work here, who wake up at 4 in the morning to put this show on air, like we're second-class citizens in the entertainment world. I have never, ever treated anyone that way, Colin said, standing his ground. And frankly, Lorraine, if this is how you treat your guests, I'm not surprised people might be hesitant to come on. Excuse me? Lorraine stood up now, her voice getting louder. Are you seriously sitting here on my show, insulting me? I'm defending myself against your attacks, Colin countered. You invited me here under the pretense of discussing my work, and instead you've spent the entire time hurling accusations and insults. Ross tried one more time to intervene. Let's everyone just take a breath here. This has gotten out of hand. But Lorraine was on a roll now. You know what your problem is, Colin? You think you're better than everyone else? You walk around with that superior attitude, that stuffy British reserve, acting like you're royalty. And you, Colin said, his voice finally rising to match hers, seem to have a massive chip on your shoulder. I don't know what I've done to deserve this treatment, but I won't sit here and be your punching bag because you're having some sort of personal crisis. The words hit Lorraine like a slap. Her face went red, and for a moment, she seemed too stunned to speak. Christine's mouth fell open. Ross looked absolutely mortified. A personal crisis? Lorraine repeated, her voice dangerously quiet now. How dare you? How dare I? Colin shot back. You've done nothing but attack me from the moment I sat down. You've questioned my character, my professionalism, spread rumors, and when I defend myself, you act like I'm the one being unreasonable. Get out, Lorraine said suddenly. Everyone froze. Christine looked at Lorraine in disbelief. Lorraine, you can't be serious. I'm absolutely serious, Lorraine said, pointing toward the exit. Get out of my studio. This interview is over. Colin stared at her for a long moment. The audience was completely silent. You could hear the camera still rolling, capturing every second of this disaster. Ross King had his head in his hands. Christine was shaking her head slowly, clearly unable to believe what was happening. With pleasure, Colin said finally. He stood up, straightened his jacket, and looked directly at Lorraine. You know, I came here today with nothing but good intentions. I was actually looking forward to this. But you've shown your true colors, and frankly, they're not very appealing. Save your speeches, Lorraine spat. Just go. But Colin wasn't finished. You talk about connecting with real people, about being accessible, but what you've done here today is show everyone watching that you're more interested in creating drama than having genuine conversations. You've embarrassed yourself, your show, and your colleagues. He gestured to Ross and Christine, both of whom looked absolutely miserable. These two have tried repeatedly to salvage this interview, to bring things back on track, but you were determined to make this ugly from the start. I genuinely hope you figure out whatever it is that's making you so bitter, because this isn't the person viewers fell in love with over the years. Lorraine's hands were shaking. I said, get out. I'm going, Colin said calmly. But before I do, I want to say this to your audience. You all deserve better than this. You deserve a host who treats guests with respect, who fosters interesting conversations, not someone who ambushes people for ratings. He started to walk off the set, his microphone still attached. One of the crew members rushed forward to unhook it, but Colin waved him off. I'll bring it back. He turned back one last time to face Lorraine, who was still standing there, trembling with rage. You had a chance to have a great interview today, Colin said. We could have talked about the film, about the craft of acting, about anything meaningful. Instead, you chose this. I hope it was worth it. And with that, Colin Firth walked off the Lorraine Kelly show set. The cameras kept rolling as Lorraine stood there, speechless, for perhaps the first time in her career. Christine had tears in her eyes, clearly devastated by what had just transpired. Ross King was staring at the floor, unable to look at anyone. The silence in the studio was deafening. Lorraine finally sat back down, but she seemed smaller somehow, deflated. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. What could she possibly say? How could she explain what had just happened? To the viewers at home? Christine reached over and squeezed her hand, but Lorraine pulled away. We need to go to commercial, she said to the producers, her voice barely above a whisper. But the damage was done. In just a few short minutes, what should have been a routine celebrity interview had become a complete catastrophe. And it was all there, captured on camera, for everyone to see. Ross King finally spoke up, his voice shaky. I think we all need to take a moment here. There's nothing to take a moment about, Lorraine said, but her voice lacked conviction. She knew, everyone knew, that this was bad, really bad. The audience sat in stunned silence. Some people looked shocked, others looked sympathetic toward Colin. A few looked angry at how Lorraine had behaved. The atmosphere in the studio had gone from tense to toxic, and there was no coming back from it. Colin had reached the backstage area by now. Staff members watched him pass, their faces a mixture of sympathy and shock. One brave production assistant approached him. "Mr. Firth, I'm so sorry about what happened out there." Colin gave her a kind smile despite everything. "It's not your fault. You all do wonderful work here. This isn't a reflection on any of you." His words were gracious, professional, exactly what you'd expect from someone of his caliber, which made Lorraine's behavior seem even worse in comparison. Here was a man who had just been publicly humiliated and attacked, and he was still thinking about the feelings of the crew members. Back on set, Lorraine was trying to compose herself. Christine was whispering urgently to her, probably trying to figure out what to do next. Ross King had gotten up and walked over to speak with the producers. Everyone was in crisis mode. "We're back in 30 seconds, someone called out. Lorraine straightened her posture, fixed her hair, and tried to put on her professional face. But there was a shakiness to her that hadn't been there before. The confidence, the bravado, it had all crumbled. She knew she'd made a terrible mistake, and now she had to face the cameras and try to explain it. Christine leaned in close. "What are you going to say?" "I don't know," Lorraine admitted, and for the first time, she sounded genuinely scared. The floor manager counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2. The red light came back on. Lorraine looked directly into the camera, and for a moment, she said nothing. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. She was struggling, visibly struggling, to find the words. Well, she finally managed. That was certainly unexpected. It was a massive understatement, and everyone knew it. Christine tried to help. These things happen in live television. But Ross wasn't letting her off that easy. "I think we need to acknowledge that what just happened was, well, it was unprofessional. On all sides." Lorraine shot him a look, but Ross continued. "Colin Firth is a respected actor, and he came here in good faith. Whatever issues there may have been behind the scenes, they shouldn't have been aired like that." "Ross," Lorraine warned. "No, I'm sorry, but I have to say this," Ross insisted. "The viewers deserve honesty. That interview went off the rails, and it wasn't Colin's fault." Lorraine's face went red again. "I think we can agree to disagree on that." "I don't think we can," Christine said quietly, surprising everyone. "Lorraine, I love you. You know I do. But what happened there, the things you said, they weren't okay." Lorraine looked between her two panelists, and for the first time, she seemed to realize that she'd lost them too. They weren't backing her up. They were calling her out. Gently, perhaps, but still calling her out. "I was trying to have a real conversation," Lorraine said defensively. "I'm tired of these fake celebrity interviews where no one says anything meaningful. There's a difference between asking tough questions and launching personal attacks," Ross said. "And what you did crossed that line." The audience murmured in agreement. Lorraine could feel the room turning against her. This was her show, her studio, her audience, and she was losing them in real time. Meanwhile, Colin was in his dressing room, packing up his things. His phone was already blowing up with calls and messages, but he ignored them all. He just wanted to get out of there with whatever dignity he had left. There was a soft knock on the door. "Come in," he called out. It was one of the makeup artists. "I just wanted to say, for what it's worth, everyone back here thinks you handled that brilliantly. We're all really sorry about how Lorraine treated you." Colin smiled sadly. "Thank you. That means a lot." "She's not usually like that," the makeup artist continued. "I don't know what got into her today." "Neither do I," Colin admitted. "I genuinely have no idea what I did to provoke that kind of response." "You didn't do anything," the makeup artist said firmly. "That was all on her." Back in the studio, the show was limping toward its conclusion. Lorraine had tried to move on to other segments, but the energy was completely off. The audience couldn't focus on anything else. Christine and Ross were going through the motions, but their hearts clearly weren't in it. Every few minutes, Lorraine would try to justify her actions. "I just think celebrities need to be held accountable," she'd say. "Or we can't just let people waltz in here and act superior." But each time she spoke, she dug herself deeper. Christine and Ross had stopped trying to help her. The audience had gone cold. Even the crew seemed checked out, just waiting for the show to end so they could process what had happened. Colin had left the building by the time the show wrapped up. He'd slipped out a side entrance, avoiding the cameras that were surely waiting out front by now. Word had already spread about the disastrous interview. Social media was exploding. Videos of the confrontation were being shared thousands of times, and in every comment, every post, every discussion, the consensus was clear. Colin Firth had been ambushed. He'd been treated unfairly. He defended himself with grace and dignity. And Lorraine Kelly had shown a side of herself that no one wanted to see. The show finally ended. The second the cameras cut, Lorraine stood up and walked off set without saying a word to anyone. Christine sat there looking shell-shocked. Ross shook his head slowly, gathering his notes. "That was the worst thing I've ever been a part of," Christine said quietly. "Me too," Ross agreed. "And I've been in this business a long time," the audience filed out, buzzing with conversation. Staff members clustered in groups, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Everyone knew they'd just witnessed something that would be talked about for years to come, not for good reasons. Not because it was entertaining or interesting, but because it was a complete disaster. In her dressing room, Lorraine sat alone, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The makeup that had looked perfect at the start of the show was now smudged. Her eyes were red. She looked tired, defeated, nothing like the bright, bubbly host that millions of viewers had come to love. Her phone rang. It was her producer. She didn't answer. It rang again and again. She turned it off because what could she possibly say? How could she explain what had possessed her to attack Colin Firth like that? She'd let her emotions get the better of her, let some perceived slight blow up into a full confrontation, and now everyone had seen it. Everyone knew. The confident, confrontational woman who had stood on that stage and berated a respected actor was gone now, replaced by someone who was starting to realize the magnitude of what she'd done. The mask had slipped, and what was underneath wasn't pretty. Colin, meanwhile, was already halfway home. He sat in the back of a car, watching the London streets pass by, and he felt oddly calm. He'd done nothing wrong. He'd defended himself when attacked. He'd maintained his dignity even when someone was trying to strip it away. He thought about Lorraine's accusations, her anger, her bitterness, and he felt something almost like pity. Whatever was going on with her, whatever had caused her to lash out like that, it clearly had nothing to do with him. He'd just been a convenient target. His phone buzzed with another message. This one was from his agent, just 3 words. "You handled that perfectly," and he had. When faced with hostility and disrespect, Colin Firth had remained professional, articulate, and composed. He'd called out bad behavior without stooping to that level himself. He'd walked away with his head held high. The same couldn't be said for Lorraine Kelly. She'd let her worst impulses take over, and it had been broadcast live for everyone to see. The warm, friendly host had revealed a cruel streak, and viewers wouldn't forget it anytime soon. As the day wore on and the story spread, the narrative was consistent. Colin Firth, blindsided and disrespected, had handled an impossible situation with remarkable grace. Lorraine Kelly, for reasons no one could quite understand, had sabotaged her own show and her own reputation in just a few explosive minutes. It had started as a simple morning interview. It should have been easy, pleasant, forgettable. Instead, it became the day that Colin Firth got kicked off the Lorraine Kelly show. Not because he'd done anything wrong, but because the host couldn't control her own demons long enough to conduct a professional interview. And when he walked off that set, Colin wasn't just leaving a hostile environment. He was showing everyone watching exactly how to handle yourself when someone treats you with contempt, with dignity, with honesty, and with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their own worth. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. On one side, a respected actor maintaining his composure under fire. On the other, a talk show host melting down on live television, attacking her guests, alienating her co-hosts, and disappointing her audience. It only took 43 seconds for that first barbed comment to land, but the fallout would last much, much longer. Because everyone had seen what happened when Lorraine Kelly stopped being the cheerful morning host and showed who she really was beneath the surface. And Colin Firth had shown everyone who he was too. The difference between the two couldn't have been clearer.